morning, everybody. Let's get started. How y'all doing? Friday noon, ready to go home. Is that how you're doing? Yeah, doing okay. I'm kind of Friday noon, ready to go home too, so we can get through this, and hopefully it will be helpful to you as you begin to think about planning for your field placement for next year. It's hard to believe we're already in that place, but we are starting to be in that place. I do want to mention that I am recording today's session on Zoom so that we can post it next week. If you are dying to go back and look at it, or if someone is not here, was not able to come, we want to make sure that it's available to them. Okay, so the purpose, I'm Rebecca Brigham, Assistant Dean for Field Education. Done that for a really long time, 16 years here at the school, still love it every day. And the purpose of today is to go over the process with you of selecting, requesting, and matching a specialization field placement. So I want to start with this with a little bit of a story about my own life as a social worker in my career. I came to this school to get my master's degree in social work a really long time ago. Actually, I finished in 1984, which I know probably most of you may not have been born then. It was a long time ago. And when I came to school, one thing that I think is similar to y'all as my own experience here is that when I came, I wanted to specialize in child welfare practice, and I was quite certain that I would become a wonderful clinician and carry out my career in direct practice all of my days until I retired. That's in fact not what happened at all in my career. I went and practiced child welfare practice for 2 years. Wasn't so crazy about it. Specialized in that area here in the school, and then began to work in more sort of macro practice settings, leading, managing, and developing programs for the rest of my career, including this one here. And so I tell you that story a little bit because, whoops, there's a lot of roads. That's one of the things that is so terrifically wonderful about the social work profession, is there are so many roads, train tracks, whatever you want to call them, that you can go down in your career that we want you to think about. My advice for you when you think about planning your specialization field placement is that you start with your hopes and your dreams. What is it that you're thinking that you're wanting to do? And then you always start with the top, the best, right? Exactly what you want. But then realizing that our goal really here for you is that you learn a set of skills that you can generalize to a wide range of roles over the course of your career. That's what my career has meant to me. I've taken the skills and the knowledge that I learned when I was in school, and I've been in a wide range of roles. That's really how we encourage you also to think about your specialization year. What is it that your dream is? What is it that your hope is? But then how do you really think about all of these many roads and paths that you may travel over the course of your experience? Okay, so I want to talk with you a little bit about how we approach this work with you, because I think it may be a little bit different than how you think about it and how you approach it. And I think sometimes there can be a little bit of a mismatch between your approach and our approach. And I think it's sort of important that we come together in a mutual of understanding of how this goes. So the first thing is your expectations, the student expectations. What we really need for you to be thinking about is, what are your learning interests? What are your learning needs? Maybe what are some things that you are struggling with in your generalist placement? Some things that you want to make sure that you emphasize in your second year to make sure that you really get that competency that you know that you're going to need. What is the population that you're interested in? What is direct practice, macro practice? What is your concentration choice? So what we ask you to begin thinking about is, what are you looking for? And what are your goals? Recognizing the many roads. The field office sort of sits right here in the middle, the field program, because one of the things, in addition to considering your goals, your learning interests, your needs, are the expectations of the agency. As you know, field placements are all voluntary. And so agencies have thoughts and dreams and goals and ideas about the kinds of things that they can offer to students best. And that's one of the things that we need to consider in this puzzle is when we match you to an agency, what is it that the agency is needing? And what are the client expectations when working with a trainee or a student? And then the third sort of spoke in this diagram are the school expectations. We need to make sure that we meet our accreditation standards, which means that every field placement has to teach the 9 competencies that are required by CSWE. We have to make sure that the assignments that you're given in your specialization, your coursework, are going to be able to be carried out in the setting. We have to make sure that the school's policies and programs and curriculum expectations are all met. And that really brings sort of this sweet spot here in the middle that the field faculty uses to identify field placements for students. What are your goals and expectations? What are the agencies and clients' goals and expectations? And what is it that the school is trying to achieve? Does that make sense, sort of, in terms of an approach for us? Okay. All right. So why today? It's a Friday in November, and you're not going to start your field placement until August. Why do we start this now? And the reason is you have 3 more weeks of classes, I think, something like that. You'll be gone for the holidays, for the winter break, and then you come back in January, and field placement planning starts up the moment that you arrive back. We will be in active mode. We have about 125 specialization students that all need to be matched at the same time, including the Winston students. And so we give you this orientation piece now so that you can just begin thinking about it as you're driving around over the holidays, traveling, sleeping late, working, whatever it is that you're doing, so that you can begin to mull around some of the questions that you are asking yourself about your goals, your desires, so that when you get back, right as soon as you arrive, you will see, as I go through this time frame, that we're going to hit it right then. We've got many places to travel to get 125 students placed in time. Okay, so I'm not going to read this slide. I think you all know this, but I just really want to bring it into the room. You all have chosen your concentrations already for next year. How many of you have chosen direct practice? Okay, a bunch. How many of you have chosen community management policy practice? Woo. Okay, great, excellent. So then there's community management policy practice. It would make sense then that your field placement needs to be in line with your area of concentration. In your generalist year, what we are really trying to do is expose you to the social work profession and skills broadly. Why about 50% of your field placement, your generalist year, should be direct practice, and about 50% macro, is we want to make sure that your generalist year is about breadth. That's not true for your final year or your specialization year. This year is about depth. It's about crafting a field placement and a set of courses that will allow you to go deep in one area. So if you're macro, you need to start thinking about macro skills, knowledge, settings, populations. If you're direct practice, you need to think about direct practice ones because those things have to line up. And there is actually a course requirement in terms of your choice of concentration. So if you're a direct practice student, we will, once you start working on your plan of study in January, you will choose a direct practice HBSC practice course that corresponds with your field placement. So if you are primarily specializing in working with older adults in your specialization field placement, you would take the older adults course. If you're in healthcare, you would take the healthcare course, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's pretty intuitive and obvious. And likewise, in community management and policy practice, if your stated goals of your field placement are primarily to work in management and administration, we would want you to take the administration and management course. If it's primarily in terms of advocacy, community involvement, community engagement, then you would take the community course. And then there's this alternative course that you can take also for social work practice in global settings, okay? So this is how your sort of whole individualized plan begins to come together. In your generalist year, we chose the field placement for you based on what you told us you were interested in, but we matched you. In your generalist year, the courses are all the same. In the specialization year, the opposite is true. You craft a plan for you based on your interests, your needs, what it is that you're looking for. Okay, so as I've already been saying, really two things then begin to work in tandem when you get back. One thing is, which is why we want you to start thinking about it now. One is your field placement. So you will be working with field faculty, and I'll describe that process in a little bit, to determine what are the field options that are available in our local community. At the same time, you are going to be working on your plan of study, developing that, crafting your courses, talking to people about which courses might best support my learning in my field placement, my future career goals, etc. Okay. And just as in your generalist year, you know you have the 9 competencies and the behaviors. I think there's 38 behaviors in the generalist year. There are also competencies in your final year, the same 9 overall competencies, but the behaviors will change. You will see them go from sort of a basic, broad level understanding of social work practice to a deeper, more advanced level of social work practice. And there are some differences between your generalist year field placement and your specialization year field placement. One is you are in field, most of you, 2 days a week, 16 hours a week this year. Many of you, that's true, you're in field on Wednesdays and Thursdays. In your specialization year, you'll be in field 24 hours a week or 3 days a week. For most of you, that will be on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And you'll be surprised, I think, how little you're here in the building your second year. Some students actually choose their courses based on whether they're offered on Mondays or Tuesdays and really trying to come into the building just 1 day a week. So field really becomes a big part of your plan in terms of how your schedule all looks next year, but it is 24 hours a week. For a total of 680 hours, when you subtract out the leave time from that, it becomes 632 hours, okay? Last year, we chose the placements for you. We matched you with the agencies that were available for the generalist year based on an interview with you and what you expressed in your generalist planning guide. This year, you will choose your top 3 choices. You will tell us, my first choice is this, my second choice is this, and our third choice is this. And so what that means for you in making that decision is you need a lot more information, right? You'll need more information so that you can make an informed decision. The last thing is there is no field seminar in the final year. All of you are in a seminar this year. One of the primary purposes of field seminar is to help work with you over the course of the year to understand and help you make sense of what it is that you're learning in the classroom and seeing in field, because it can often look pretty different than what you're learning about ideally in the classroom. In the second year, we really expect you to be able to manage those differences individually and in concert with individual meetings with your field faculty, so we don't have seminar in the second year. Okay, so there are a bunch of resources. I just said it's going to be important that you have information to make decisions about your top 3 choices, and we have a number of things that you can use to inform your process. So I want to go over those with you. The first thing, just so you know, is a week ago, I sent out emails to all of our existing field instructors and task supervisors. We call it the availability survey, and it basically says, are you going to be available next year to serve one of our students? Are you interested in providing a field placement for our students or not next year? And most repeat, not every single one does. And so we'll be getting that data now into the field office, ideally up until the 1st of January. Though I will be honest with you, there are some field instructors we're going to need to nudge a little bit based on what you tell us you're interested in. So remember, field instructors are all volunteer. We certainly ask them to be responsive to us, but honestly and transparently, sometimes they need a little bit of nudging to let us know. So that data will actually get put into the database all the way starting really from now until August. We're constantly talking to field instructors about their availability. All right. So what we want you to do before the spring semester begins is we want you to set up a meeting with your field seminar leader, who is now adding an additional role with you that is we call placement manager. It's kind of like case manager. We want the seminar leader to continue to walk you through the process of identifying your field placement so that when we get to the match process, we're all really clear. You're clear, we're clear on what your hopes and expectations are, and then we try to match you to those agency expectations. And one of the ways that we do that is for you to set up a meeting between now and before you leave for the winter break so that they can begin to craft an individualized plan for you about how you're going to make those decisions. We want you to complete a rough draft of your field education specialization planning guide. It is appearing on your forms in Swiss now. If you look for it, you'll see it there. It takes maybe 20 minutes. Not a big thing to try to do, but it does sort of require you to begin to think about, this is what I'm interested in terms of my field placement. Bring that draft copy of your planning guide to the meeting so that they can begin to think about and see and read ahead. This is what the student is interested in. And then the last thing we're going to ask you to do before you come back in January is update your resume. Because when we do match you with a field placement, a field instructor, they will have access to your resume. They want to know about you before you come for the interview. We do not share the planning guide with them. That is an internal document just for us. But we want you to update your resume, which needs to include your generalist field placement and any other work experience that you've had since you submitted your resume to us last. Okay. In January, once this data starts coming in from the field agencies, you'll be able to search in Swiss for field placements where field instructors have told us they're available. And there are filters there. Don't try to do it now because you won't find very much there. The surveys just went out to the field instructors. But in January, you'll be able to search by direct practice or macro practice. Generalization, y'all are going to want to look for those ones that are designated as specialization field placements. You can look for types of practice. You can look by region, county, and city. You can select by types of service. You can select by populations of interest. So there are filters that you can go in and check, and it will bring up the available agencies for you. Okay. We also hold optional information sessions those first few weeks in January, where we invite students who are in some of the field placements now to come and talk with you about their experiences in field. Field is real world practice, right? There is no perfect ideal setting, but they come and they share with you, this is what my experience has been. And so the list of optional information sessions is listed there. I also want to say we hold them on Mondays and Tuesdays because the students are in field on Fridays, so they can't come. But we will Zoom record every one of those sessions so that you can either watch them at your leisure or you can Zoom into the session itself. They're all held during the lunch hour on Mondays and Tuesdays. And at the first of the year, I'll send all the Zoom links out to everybody so that everyone has access to these sessions. Okay. Now, there are 300 field instructors in the database in a wide range of agencies. And there's no way that any one field faculty member can know the level of detail about the agency and the learning opportunities for every individual field placement. So what we have done is we've divided up by specialty area. And what your placement manager, your seminar leader, will help you do is they'll help you think about who on the field team knows the most about the field placements that are in your area of interest. So Amy Levine is the person who knows about public child welfare and IDD placements. Robin Sansing, if you're a macro student, in the end, you're going to be talking to Robin Sansing about available field placements. If you're interested in schools or school social work licensure, then you'll be working with Tatiana Williams. If you're interested in healthcare or aging, you'll be working with Denise Dews. If you're interested in child mental health, not DSS or not schools, you're going to work with Ronnie Zuckerman. If you're interested in adult mental health or substance abuse, you're going to work with Karan Johnson. If you have questions about Prime Care and Prime Care OUD, this wonderful human being who knew I needed water, without my even asking her, is available to talk to you about those two programs. She's also going to stay after I'm done today for students who are interested in Prime Care or Prime Care OUD to talk to you about that. And then anyone who's interested in international placements are going to meet with me. Okay, so we've kind of carved out areas of specialty so that we can answer your questions in depth about the certain kinds of field placements that you are interested in. So what's going to happen is you're going to meet with your placement manager before you leave for the winter break. And I'm just going to use an example. You're going to say, I'm interested in child mental health. I think that's the direction I want my specialization field placement to be in. So your placement manager is going to sort of help you think through that, make sure that that's your area, and then they will likely say something like, then you need to attend the child mental health optional information session that I just went through. And your next step then is to talk to Ronnie Zuckerman, because Ronnie is the specialist for child mental health placements. That's one example. Another example might be, I'm not really sure what I'm interested in, but I think maybe I'm interested in schools. I don't want to be a mental health practitioner. I want to work more sort of in a case management approach. I might be interested in schools. I might be interested in DSS, not really sure. Your placement manager is going to say, okay, then we need to spend between now and February 14th deciding, because you're going to have to list your first, second, or third choice. So in order to help you decide, I recommend that you go to both optional information sessions and you make an appointment with Amy Levine and with Tatiana Williams so that you can begin to get the information you need. Then your seminar leader will be checking in with you. How's it going? Is this helping you make a decision? What are you thinking about now? So that when we get to February 14th, everybody's pretty clear about where you're headed. Does that make sense in terms of a flow for people? Okay. There's other people we suggest that you talk to. We really want this process to be as transparent as we can possibly make it. You may have a close relationship with your faculty advisor. They know you hopefully well. Talk to them, ask them their opinion and advice on field placements, career choices, career direction, whatever it is that you're interested in. If you're interested in a dual degree or a certificate or licensure of some kind, make sure you meet with the faculty who are in charge of those areas so that you make sure both your plan of study and your field placement are aligned with your certificates and licensures that you're approving. You may have other faculty that are not your faculty advisor. Maybe you weren't able to develop a relationship with them, but you're really close with another faculty member in the building. Go talk to them, meet with them. Most of our faculty are delighted to meet with students around their social work careers. Okay. Also, when you get back, there will be a list of the current students who are in the field placements that are available this year, posted on the door of the field education suite on the 3rd floor. You can come and take a picture of that if you'd like to. You can contact the students in the agencies that are there now. Ask them, what's great about the field placement? What's not so great? What do you like about your field instructor? What are you not so crazy about? There will be answers to all those questions because there's no perfect field placement. And next year, you'll do that for the next round of students. I will say we have to ask students permission to put their names on the list. We have done that. There may be some students in field placements this year who don't want to talk to another student. Their names will not be on the list. But the majority of students are open to your contacting them and saying, what's up? What do you think about this experience? Okay, so this is really what this process looks like. This is a diagram of everything that I just went through. You're in the middle. You're thinking about what it is you're interested in, and your field faculty member, seminar leader, now placement manager, is working with you between now and February 14th to help you decide on your first, second, and third choice. These are all of the places where you will be getting information. I know for me, when I make decisions like this, I like to have as much information as possible. And so we really try to create that for you. There's one place that we're not able to create for you, and that's talking to the field instructors themselves. They have asked not to be contacted by students directly. They are busy practitioners. They are working with students, and there are a lot of schools of social work in the Triangle. There are a lot of disciplines in the Triangle, students looking for field placements. They just don't have time to talk with you individually about field placements. If you have a question, however, that we can't answer for you, that is sort of your deciding piece between how you list your first, second, or third choice, ask your placement manager to find the answer to that question for you, and we can contact the field instructors. If we have one portal, they far prefer it than lots of people contacting them. All right, February 14th is a really big day in the life of the school. It is the day when your top 3 choices are due before noon. At noon, we cut off the report. So what happens is all of your choices get input into the system. You won't make your final choices until the final week. We'll make sure that all the available field placements are in the drop-down box. Your seminar leaders, placement managers will be working with you on that. And then you'll go in and you'll pick 1, 2, 3. You'll make sure your planning guide articulates everything that you want it to say. And at noon, we will cut it off in an effort to be fair and equitable with everyone. Swiss takes all that information and it pushes out reports for me. So I can see by student and the team can see by student what your first, second, and third choice is. And I can also see by agency and by field placement how many students have chosen a particular field placement where we now may need to make a decision about which student goes into that particular setting. One thing I want to add about this is you need to list 3 placements. We expect every student to list 3 placements that are reasonably acceptable to you. If you don't, we will consider your application later after the pool is done. So you must list 3 and they all must be reasonably acceptable to you. So you need to come up with that list of 3 for us. Okay. So then the field faculty meet in team together over the next 3 weeks. We meet every Tuesday morning, and we will go through every student together as a team. We will look at every student, their career goals and choices, the available field placements, how many students chose a particular field placement, and we will begin to make decisions about, does this field placement actually match with the students' choices that they've put down or their career goals? And where there are places where 5, 6, 7, 8 people chose the one field placement, then we need to make some decisions about who do we think is best in that field placement. Then we begin to look at second and third choices. We do use a team decision-making model. And I will tell you, in 16 years, we have come to agreement on every single student except one. I didn't like that year very much. And so if that happens, I'm not anticipating it will happen this year at all. So we work and we work and we work together as a team to decide what is the best plan we can put together for the individual student and for the cohort as a whole. If it were to come down to it and we just couldn't come to agreement, I'll make the decision. I mean, that's I guess, my role in doing that. I don't anticipate that will happen. Okay, how do we decide? What are the principles that we use? We want to be transparent about that. And so it's, how do the 3 placement choices meet your stated placement and career goals? It's why you're articulating that thoughtfully, and the planning guide is important. How well do the proposed field instructors and students' learning and teaching styles match? What are the agency's expectation of the student? Some places require students to be more skilled and experienced than others. That is the reality of what they are offering. You should ask your placement managers, the other field faculty that you're meeting with, do you think that I have the qualities, the background, the experience to be considered for this type of field placement? And we'll be straightforward with you and tell you that. Okay. How well the placement fits the career goals of the student, the strength of the student's generalist placement. And so one of the things that I'm very well aware of is that generalist placements, you didn't choose the placement. We did try very hard to match you with what your stated interests are, but because of that process, we know that some generalist field placements are uneven in terms of experience. So if your placement has disrupted or has otherwise not been the greatest experience for you, we do consider that as a field faculty, because when you graduate from the school next year, you will have to demonstrate mastery of the competencies. And so we want to make sure over the course of the 2 years that you will have the ability to do that. We don't want to duplicate prior employment or what you did in your generalist year. This placement should build on what you did. We absolutely do consider health and disability needs of students as they are processed through accessibility resources and service. We are not able to consider travel distance or financial need in making the decisions that we make. There's just no way that the field program can collect the information on financial status of every student and the way to consider it thoughtfully. Our basic policy is students need to think about a 60-mile radius from here for their field placement. What I always say to students is we're a big university in a little teeny town. Only about a third of our field placements are actually delivered here in the town of Chapel Hill. The rest are in Durham and Raleigh and the surrounding communities. So that's something for you to think about in terms of your placement choices. On March 7th, next big day, we will announce to you the decisions of the field team. That's a Friday. It's the Friday before spring break. So you leave for spring break knowing the placement setting where you have been matched. Yes. That's the first kind of yay I've gotten today. They'll come out to you in an email, individual emails sent out to you. Linda, our wonderful Linda Pridgeon-Baswell, sits in her office and enters everyone on that day, and she goes through the list all day long. And it will say, here's your match, here's your field instructor, here's their contact information. The next piece is on you. You need to schedule an interview with them ASAP. Because guess what? There's a lot of other schools of social work, and there's a lot of other people knocking on their door trying to get a field placement. And so we need you to get in, to call them, make an interview with them as soon as you get back from spring break so that you can go out now and talk to the field instructor yourself. You should consider it a mutual interview. They're interviewing you. You should dress and behave as if it were a job interview. Just because we've matched you and we think it's a good choice doesn't mean they have to accept you. So you want to be on your very best sort of professional delivery of your social work self. And then you come back and you say, wow, that went really great. I'm done. You tell your placement manager, your seminar leader, oh, we're good. I'm all done. Or once in a while, it happens very minimally because we put so much effort on the beginning. You may come back and you say, I'm not certain. Can we talk about this some more? Okay, and you certainly have the option of doing that and considering a field placement that now remains available. Okay, so once you've had the interview, hopefully no later than April 4th, you let your seminar leader, placement manager, the status of yours accepting your field placement or not. That date is really important because our goal is that these decisions are made before the end of the spring semester so that you leave knowing this is my plan when I get back. It becomes much more difficult to work with us when you're not coming to campus at least one day a week. Also, we have a set of advanced standing students who are coming right on the heels of your decision making. Then we have generalist students coming right on the heels of that. And I will say our attention really turns. We've put 6 months of time into helping you think about your field placement. That's our top priority, but our attention honestly really does turn to other cohorts and other groups of students once the end of the semester is done. So we need you to really stick with these deadlines so that we can make this happen for you. Then, when you leave on April 26th, the goal is that you know where your field placement is and where you'll be going in the fall, what you'll be doing, and you'll be all set to go. All right, I'm going to pause there. I have a few more things that I want to share with you. And then if you're interested in Prime Care and Prime Care OUD, Meryl's going to be here. But I want to pause there just for any questions you all may have about the process. Yes. You're not guaranteed. I will tell you that 95% of the students get one of their top 3 choices. We can't guarantee it because we don't know what the puzzle is going to look like when it comes into us. But I can tell you why students typically don't get one of their top three choices. Would that be helpful? Yeah, okay. One is often, the one reason that is common is students don't follow the directions. In my view, don't want to insult anybody, but if you don't meet with your placement manager, you don't meet the deadlines, you don't meet with the placement expert in the area that you're interested in, we can't place you in a field placement because we don't have enough information about you. And remember that circle up there about agency expectations and client expectations. That is our obligation as well. So we strongly encourage you to follow the directions that we've given you. Personally, I feel like we give you a lot of chances to get the information, but the deadlines are really important. Sometimes we have a lot of students choose the same top three choices. It just happens that way. So we might have, let's say in the top three choices, we might have 6 placements, and we have a bunch of students who choose those placements in different combinations of first, second, or third choice, but there still just aren't enough in those top 3 choices. Sometimes those are the stipended field placements. Sometimes they're the very intensive 50-minute hour sit in an office psychotherapy types of field placements. And it's just sometimes we run out of them. We don't guarantee a certain placement for a student. We guarantee an area of practice. So if you tell me you're interested in an adult mental health, we'll make sure you're in an adult mental health placement, child mental health, child welfare, whatever. But very specific sort of narrow areas within those, we can't guarantee that. Does that help? Other questions? Yes. Hi. Sure. You're my plant because those are the next slides. So yes, why don't I continue, and then I'll be available at the end of this to answer some questions as a group. I'll also go stand out in the lobby if anybody wants to talk with me individually. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for the, okay. All right, before we get to that though, so our field advisory committee is made up of field instructors. One thing that they ask is that we match you with one agency at a time. So if you go out to your agency and have your interview, and you're going to need to decide, I either want it or I don't want it. You can't kind of interview around. And the reason for that is we've got too many students needing to be placed, and we're probably needing that placement for another student. So we are going to need you to be really clear. Either you want the placement or you don't want the placement. Okay. Actually, there were other slides. I'll get to your question in a second. Okay. So agencies with earlier deadlines. You're going to get an email probably right after Thanksgiving from me that is going to spell out some field placements that have earlier deadlines than the process I just went through with you, unfortunately. But some agencies just decide I want to do it differently, and we really just have to work with them on that. If you're interested in a placement with the VA, that's in Durham or Salisbury or Fayetteville, the VA has different processes to consider students, and they often are considering students from a bunch of schools at the same time. So their process looks a little bit different. If you're interested in a placement with the Center for Child and Family Health, which are child mental health placements, their process is different. They actually hold a session in January, kind of a meet and greet, where people come and they meet you in sort of a group setting. If you're interested in UNC student wellness, which is predominantly a substance use setting, their process is going to look different. They actually interview people from a bunch of schools, and many years, though not all, they're able to pay their student interns. If you're interested in transitions hospice or teach, they all use different processes, and that we'll explain all of that in an email to you that will come out right after Thanksgiving. All of those will be done by February 14th. So if you apply for one of those and you don't get it, you still get to enter the matching pool with the rest of the field placements. That's sort of our agreement with these agencies, is that we don't want students to be disadvantaged who are considering these options. Placements with stipends or awards that come with them. The Prime Care and the Prime Care OUD placements that Meryl is going to be talking about come with a very nice set of stipends, as well as other requirements to participate in those programs. The Duke Counseling and Wellness placement, which is probably our highest stipended, and I'm going to use this word, although the field faculty don't like it when I say it, this is a competitive field placement because of the amount of stipend and what Duke is really looking for. So if you're interested in this, make sure you talk with Karan to see, do you think I am competitive in terms of my background? I've already mentioned the VA hospitals have a stipend. If you're interested in the Australia Student Exchange Program that I've already had some orientation sessions about, that comes with a $5,000 stipend, doing your field placement in Australia. UNC Student Wellness, I mentioned already. The LEND program, information about this is all on the school's website, is for students who are interested in doing their field placements in the area of intellectual developmental disabilities and working at CIDD. And then there is also a Tannenbaum Scholarship for any student doing their field placement in Guilford County. The Tannenbaum family gave an endowment to the school to try to build the social work workforce in Guilford County. That's High Point, Greensboro, any of those communities. If you're interested in that, you apply for the scholarship through Sharon Holmes Thomas, but that is available. Yes. They are. The Prime Care OUD, the funder, HRSA, requires that those be direct practice students. Obviously, do counseling and wellness as well. I think that's also true for VA. The Australia Student Exchange can be macro or direct. UNC Student Wellness is direct practice stipend. LEND can be direct or macro. And Tannenbaum can be direct or macro. Okay. So back to my friend in the back. There are a few miscellaneous details and other things that we can do. Most of you will use the matching pool that we have been describing, which is a pool of field placements that people go in and decide based on. However, we are open to considering other alternatives for you as long as they meet the Council on Social Work Education's accreditation standards and the policies and procedures of the school. So some of those are employer-based placements. If you're interested in doing your field placement in your place of employment, I'm not going to go through them today just because it's long, but if you're interested in that, we are definitely open to talking with you about that. What you were referencing is something that we call an ad hoc placement, which is a field placement that's not in the database, but is a really cool thing that you might want to do. Maybe you want to go work with Greg Meyer at the General Assembly. We can talk to Greg about that. This is a plan that you're developing uniquely for yourself. We are certainly open to talking with you about that as long as the standards are met. Also, if for some reason you can't do your field placement during the school year next year, some of you this year are opting to do your field placement over the summer as a block placement. You could opt to do your field placement after your specialization coursework the following summer. And so we're certainly open to considering that for folks. A few other things. Yes. Yes, absolutely, because we have to make sure. So the question is, do we have to talk to them if you want to find your own field placement? You start with your seminar leader, because you might not thoroughly know. We've been in the field placement business a really long time. Sometimes there are agencies that we don't use anymore for a variety of reasons. We often have contacts in many of the agencies and can help you think about this, but we really don't want students out talking to agencies. We'll kind of give you the questions to ask, and if you think, oh, you go out and talk with them and it sounds pretty good, then you bring us in and we will meet with them. We vet every single field placement according to the standards that have to be met. Make sense? Okay. All right. So let's see. Did I go back? Yeah. So a few things to think about also when you're out doing your interviews is some placements require that you work over the holiday break. That's because clients may need you over the holiday break, and it can be as long as 6 weeks. So make sure that you ask about that during your interview. Am I going to need to be here during that time? Many of our agencies, about 80%, require a criminal records check, drug screen, health screen, flu shot. A whole range of stuff is a part of their onboarding for their interns, often similar to their employees. Make sure you talk to your field faculty member and the agency about that. Some agencies are going to require that you use your personal vehicle as a part of the delivery of services. Most agencies, I think all, require that you have a North Carolina driver's license and documentation of insurance. Ask about that. These policies are changing all the time in 250 agencies. There's no way the field office can know the details of all of that. So some of that we really expect you to ask about. And I've already mentioned about being placed in one agency at a time. If you're applying for a dual degree program, we want you to go through the matching pool process as if you were not applying to the dual degree program. Because if for some reason you didn't get accepted, we want to make sure that you're not left out of the process, okay? So what happens is we're finding out about who's gotten accepted into the dual degree program about the same time that all these deadlines are working. So go through the process, have a backup plan. Almost all of our students do get accepted into dual degree programs, but there's no guarantee. And we want to make sure you'll have something available to you. Yes. You would hold off on that, but you won't need to be, we'll kind of be managing that in the background a little bit. Okay. All right. Okay, so a few cool other things. If you want to do a third field placement and you want to, yes, I like you. You give me lots of positive vibes. Yes, you can do that this summer. We consider it an advanced generalist field placement. And so if you're interested in setting up a third field placement, you do have to pay tuition and fees. Sorry, but that's the way universities work. Then we're happy to work on that with you. Talk to your seminar leader, placement manager for about that. Those placements can be local, national, or international. So that gives you a whole range of options. They're pretty flexible. Let's see, we need to make sure they sort of fit in with your overall plan. And I've already said it's an advanced generalist placement. Yes. Has to be a minimum of 240 hours. Yep, just to make the credit hours worth it. Yep, okay. There's a little bit more info. Oh, 250 hours, sorry, I was 10 hours off, okay. If you want field placements, specialization field placements are supposed to be 80% in your area of interest, 20% can be Like if you're direct practice, 20% can be macro. If you want an exception to that ratio, you can request an exception to that. You would come through me. If you want an employer-based placement or an ad hoc placement or a summer block placement or a national international placement, you'll talk with your seminar leader first, but ultimately as field director, it's my responsibility to approve those. But we really are trying to work with you sort of in the reality of social work practice and what it looks like and who's available. We really are trying to work with you to help meet your unique interests and needs. Again, if you're interested in going to Sydney, Australia for a block placement next fall, those applications are due on November 22nd. If you want more information about that, I have a taped PowerPoint presentation. Please just email me and I'm happy to get you that information to do that. And announcement, your next one of these specialization planning sessions is if you're a full-time student on January 21st. That says 12:15. Yep, in the auditorium at 1. Yep, it says the right thing. In the auditorium at 1. And if you're a Triangle DE student, it will be January 31st at 12:15. Dr. Naylor will be here and she will be talking with you about the plan of study part of this, putting your courses all together and how you want to go through that process to make sure in the end your field placement and your coursework and your very individualized plan for your final year come together. Okay, so before I turn it over to Meryl, if you have a question that would be of interest to the entire group, you can ask it now. Otherwise, if it's an individual question, I'm going to go stand in the lobby while Meryl presents. I'll also, if you want to hear Meryl and then talk to me, I'm going to hang around during her presentation so that you can get your questions answered. So, does anybody have a question that would be of interest to the group? Do you feel like you kind of know what this is going to look like? Yes, in the back again, too. Awesome. Yay. We can all go home happy. All right, so we're really here to work with you, but we need you to work with us, meet with us, think about your interests. I'm going to go stand out in the lobby, and Meryl, I'm going to turn it over to you. I will try to be as succinct as I possibly can. If you are sticking around, you might want to come up and get one of these flyers, okay? I'm just going to pull up the Prime Care website while some shifting happens, but go ahead and pick one of those up. All righty. I'll try to be as quick as possible. Y'all deserve a little bit of a break before afternoon classes. My name is Meryl Canfor, and I'm a clinical social worker. I've also had a circuitous path to get to this point. Like Rebecca, started off doing psychiatry, child and adolescence, moved on to doing substance abuse work, outpatient, moved on to doing eating disorders work. And then here I am sort of coordinating a nice program at the School of Social Work. So just the path to wherever you wind up as a social worker is long and varied and great. That's the best, I think, one of the best parts of the degree. So UNC Prime Care is the name of a federally funded grant that Lisa Zerden and colleagues here at the School of Social Work were awarded in 2014. There was a lot of money that the federal government was putting out in response to some of the tenets of the Affordable Care Act in 2010.
And some of those were about trying to deliver healthcare in a smarter, more comprehensive way. And there was a lot of focus on the integration of physical healthcare and behavioral healthcare. When I talk about behavioral health, I'm talking mental health and substance use. And so what the federal government really wanted was for schools of social work to train students and be able to flood the marketplace with students who could integrate into primary care and specialty care settings and know how to work alongside medical providers, how to do assessments and brief treatment. In part, this was also a response to Sandy Hook and the thought of just a number of shooters being, active shooters being people who had mental health issues and just they weren't being caught in the mental health system, but they showed up for a sore throat or for immunizations. And so if there was a mental health specialist who was at a site like that, they would be able to really capture some of the mental health challenges perhaps that were not being caught. And so we, UNC, received the first Prime Care grant in 2014, and we trained, I think, 93 students between 2014 and 2017. We got another iteration of the grant in 2017. We're currently in the midst of that grant as well. We have funding for that grant until 2022. And we also got another grant, which I'll talk about in just a second, just this year in September, which is called Prime Care OUD, or opioid use disorder. So first of all, HRSA, our funding agency, they love us. We have a great program here. Dr. Zerden writes brilliant grants and they fund her, and her research is largely on the things that they're looking at, and so they really like her. Maybe I do a good job helping to coordinate it and pull it all through. I don't know, I think good enough anyway. And we've just become a program that they highlight nationally, so we're really proud of what we're doing. What you're looking at here is our website, and you're seeing, we'd like to take pictures of the cohorts over the years, so you're seeing that sort of rolling through the front page. What I want to point out here is that if you want to learn more information about just the integrated healthcare model, on the website is an interview that Sage Publications did with Dr. Zerden last year, where she really talks more about the benefit of behavioral health providers, especially social workers, being embedded in healthcare settings. And so it's just a great overview of our project. She doesn't really mention Prime Care because that wasn't the purpose, but she talks a lot about some of the underlying reasons why this is so important. Everything you need is on the website, which is why I didn't do a PowerPoint. I will show you that. So first, let me talk a little bit about the project. If you apply for Prime Care, and applications for Prime Care are due January 4th, I think. The application is on the website under the Student Information tab. And if you are accepted in the program, you'll find out in 2 weeks after your application, then you need to choose a field placement that is Prime Care approved. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The requirements for trainees in our program, some of the requirements are certain classes that you have to take in the fall or possibly summer. Some are offered in the summer. And some are requirements about being a participant in the substance use and addiction programs, the SUAS program. And some of the requirements are about supplemental workshops and trainings that we offer throughout the year. So on the far side of this page, you'll see a list of upcoming events. Our next seminar, for example, is on trauma-informed care. And then after that, we have one on psychopharmacology for primary care. And then we ended with a workshop on some harm reduction issues with the opioid crisis, and then sort of a closing seminar. So we hold throughout the spring and fall semester a series of sometimes full day, sometimes half day workshops and seminars that are required if you're going to be participating in the program. And we try to have these be not duplicative of the things you're learning in your coursework, but things that the federal government, our funding agency, really wants us to focus on. So pharmacology, you're just not getting that in social work school. So this is a great opportunity. The harm reduction, get a little bit about that, but we're doing, we're really focusing on some of the ethics of harm reduction challenges. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. And so the seminars are really geared towards supplementing your training. If you're accepted as a prime care trainee, you get a $10,000 stipend from the federal government. That's how serious they are about wanting us to train students to really flood the workforce with their specialty skills. And so we give students the stipends are distributed throughout the academic year. You get $2,500 twice in the fall and $2,500 twice in the spring. So it's a really generous stipend, in my mind, for not a whole lot of extra things that you have to do. Yes, there's some stipulations about your field placement, and there's some stipulations about required coursework and seminars, but in general, I think I think it's a good deal. Let's see, what else do I want to say? The other requirement is a capstone project, and you can look at these on the pull-down tab, student capstone projects. This is a voiceover PowerPoint that you will produce with, I'll see if I'll pull it down here, with other students, and we've sort of created a library of really informative topics for people looking at understanding more about integrated healthcare. So topics on aging, children and adolescents, pharmacology, rural populations, specific populations, substance use disorders. These are all the capstones that have been produced by former prime care students. And so if you're interested in looking at what that looks like, you can also look on that on the website. So let me just specify a little bit about prime care and prime care OUD. There has also been a lot of money coming from the federal government to really help target the opioid crisis that we're currently in. And so they also are looking to train professionals, social workers, to be embedded in medication-assisted treatment programs and other substance use treatment programs, and work alongside medical providers in the behavioral health needs of clients trying to manage their addiction. And so we again got a very similar model of funding for that. Is again $10,000 to participate. And if you're interested in substance use disorders as as the really important focus of your work, you could apply for the prime care grant. You could try to request a substance use focused field placement, and then we'll merge those two things. If you're participating in the SUAS program, you're in really good shape. You'll just have a few seminars and workshops that will be supplemental. So some field sites meet criteria for both just prime care and prime care OUD. So for example, let's see, integrated medicine is one. I just met with a field instructor yesterday. They are, internal medicine at UNC. They'll be taking 2 students next year. Usually those students have just been mostly doing mental health focused work, but they're starting a medication assisted program there. And so they're now going to be looking to sort of have students work alongside their providers who are treating people with substance use disorders with Suboxone. And so there's a number of field sites that, depending on what your interest is, sort of cover both grounds. Where you get assigned, which grant you'll get assigned to will depend on where your field placement. So you will, if you're accepted into prime care, you'll just know, I've got it, I got in, I'm going to be funded. Once we know where your field placement is, we'll tell you which category, which particular funding source you'll be getting funding from. The requirements are a little bit different for both, and those are outlined on that brochure, that flyer that I passed out. Mostly it's similar. There's a few different things that you might want to look at. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about what sites meet criteria for prime care and substance use, you can look at that on SWIS. It's not accurate right now because, like Rebecca said, we've just asked agencies whether they're interested in taking a student for next year. But what that list will provide you is a list of agencies that in the past have taken students and meet criteria for prime care or substance use. In the database, so I think you go to, I was looking at this just yesterday. The pull down menu is, maybe service type. Yeah, so if you were to look up either the field agency, there'll be a list of pull down menus, and there's maybe 8 categories of kinds of agencies. And if you're looking for prime care only, if you're not all that interested in substance use, but you think you might want to work as part of a healthcare team, that category is just called integrated healthcare. It's not called prime care specific, but it's called integrated healthcare. The substance use, the programs that meet criteria for substance use field sites are listed as substance use. So yeah, I probably didn't make that clear. If you're going to be a prime care student, I think I did say this, you have to be able to be committed to being in a field site that's going to give you the opportunity to learn the skills that we're trying to teach you. Some people say, well, I want to be a therapist. Is this a program that's going to work for me? And I'll say, I don't know. Probably. I think the focus is not in healthcare. It's not on necessarily teaching you how to conduct a 50-minute hour in a traditional psychotherapy model, although some sites give you that opportunity. It's really looking more at your ability to do a lot of comprehensive assessments, both structured and non-structured, brief treatment interventions, referral if needed, case management if needed, phone therapy, which is really a big part of things right now in a lot of healthcare settings. As someone who is a psychotherapist and has been doing psychotherapy for a long time, it's my belief that the foundations of learning brief treatment models and assessment are incredibly valuable if becoming a psychotherapist is what you want to do ultimately. Some sites give you more opportunity for that than others. This is not exactly the model that we're after. What we do want to make sure you do is have an opportunity to work as part of an integrated healthcare team. We want you to know how to talk to physicians and nurse practitioners and nurses and how to prove your value and worth as a social worker and what you can contribute in a holistic care of a patient. Questions? Ooh. Yes. Right. The course requirements are more. And so that's why we require a few less workshops and trainings. Because we're asking, because of the SUAS requirements, it's more. So that's what that is. And we're planning things a little bit different next year. We're going to probably have a menu of trainings that we're going to offer throughout the year that we'll advertise in August. And you'll get to choose which ones you want to go to. We're still working on the details of that, but instead of forcing you into something that you might not need or already learned, then we don't want to duplicate efforts. But we'll have a number of things that you will have a choice to choose. Does that help? Okay. Yes. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. The seminars do count for field, so you don't have to take off from your field agency. You count that towards your total field hours at the end of the year. But the training itself supplement your licensure if you're working towards your LPAS. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I'll have to check my supplier. Yes. Somebody else. Is Jackson here? No, okay. I know she just received a nice stipend too, and I was thinking, oh, that's right. Yeah. No, in fact, we prime care, we place students at the VA, for example, and they also receive prime care scholarships, prime care stipend. So yeah, we don't take any discounts. Yeah, this is not really a scholarship, so it doesn't apply to anything directly. If you choose to use it to pay for tuition or things like that, you choose to use the money in whatever way you want. What the feds wanted in giving us this generous stipends, they wanted you to be able to embrace yourself in the model, not have any worries about the supplemental training, be able to not have to do a part-time job because you're getting this funding, and just really be able to focus more on the learning of the skills that they want us to do to help them prepare the workforce, train you to do the work that they want. Yes. But there's a really nice brochure up here about SUAS that I encourage you to pick up about that. And I don't, you know, I never want to speak for Mike because it's his program, but what I understand is that if you participate in the SUAS program, that you will be closer to your sort of license, your LPAS licensure. You'll only have like 1 extra year to complete that versus the 2 years that other people might. And so, yes, your field hours and your supervision that you get as part of the SUAS program work toward the accumulation of the total number of required training hours towards your LPAS. But I think, and you might look to this, get this brochure, and pretty sure that's right. Yes, there's another case, yes. No, no, you know, it's, we'd love you to, but no, no requirement like that. That's a great, other programs have that requirement. They just want the workforce, they don't know where you show up. Question over here? Yes. Yeah, so I think it's, you know, we have 2 grants going on now, so I thought I had a plethora of money to distribute in this class. So about 50 for the coming academic year. And we have probably funded about 36 in the last couple of years. And so the addition of the money for the OUD grant really allows us to fund a lot. You know, we fund students also from Winston, and we save some spots for the advanced standing show up in May. But not to say it's not competitive. Last year, we had, you know, an incredible number of applications, and not everybody got funded. So, you know, if you're interested, I would encourage you not to do the application, you know, 2 hours before it's due. Take the time, think it through, get an editor. Yes. So you've been reading, thank you, yes. The current prime care grant actually, not the OUD grant, but the regular old prime care, we do in collaboration with the School of Nursing and specifically psychiatric mental health nurse practitioners. Their numbers are far fewer than ours. And so you're not really competing with them. They have a certain number of spots, and we have a certain number of spots. And so theirs are much smaller than ours. An incredible opportunity. You know, working in healthcare or working in substance use is something that you just really know you want to do. Just don't know what